great, and welcome you to our top 5 steps to master your US expat taxes in 2025. Tim's here from Greenback. How are you doing, Tim? Good to see you.
Hi. Yes, good to see you as well.
And I think you're in an exotic location, are you not? As often the way with Greenback personnel.
Yes, I am also an expat and I am currently in Mexico City. Yes.
Oh, wow. Excellent. Good for you. How is it there?
Oh, it's wonderful. As always, love eating all the food here and meeting with the expats here as well. There's quite a
Oh
big expat
yeah,
community. Yes.
Mexican food. That really strikes a note for our American expats coming over to Portugal here. I always wanted to find out where the best Mexican food is. Thanks, LaRonda, for letting us know how you're doing this evening. Everyone else, yeah, let us know how you are. Pop that into the chat. Tim, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself? I think we have 2 of your team members with us who are going to be putting some slides up. We've got Menanto and we've got John behind the scenes who will be helping out and taking care of any questions you've got. And we've got a special offer. But Tim, let's get to know you a little bit better if we may.
Sure. I have been an expat actually for the past 8 years. I started off as a financial planner on military bases, on US military bases around the world, helping our US troops and their families with financial planning.
Oh,
And on
wow.
those military bases in Germany and Turkey and in the UK, I became an expert on US taxes. And from there, that became a very natural transition to really specializing in expat tax issues for Americans. And that's when I moved to Greenback, and I've been at Greenback over the past year, and it's been great to have that specialty to help Americans living abroad with their tax issues.
Wonderful. Well, excellent. Okay. And it's gonna be quite conversational, but I think you do have some slides to refer to as well. So is your team going to pop those up on the screen? It's amazing. You've got a team working behind the scenes for you here.
Yes.
Evening. So looking forward to your presentation, Tim. This is my first year as a Portuguese resident. That's from Debbie. So feel free to take it away.
All right, thank you. So yes, today we'll be covering the top 5 actions that you can take to set yourself up for tax success as a US expat. All right, so navigating US taxes, as I'm sure most, if not all of you know, can be complicated. But here at Greenback, what we try to do is keep it simple on your end, and we can take care of the complexities so that you can go back to enjoying your time abroad. That is a big mission of ours at Greenback. So that's what we're here for, to make sure that navigating US taxes does not have to be a headache. Yes, and as I was saying, we do our best to take away the anxiety and hassle of filing your US taxes from overseas so that you can stay compliant with your US taxes, so that you are meeting your deadlines and filing all of the necessary forms. Um, can be a daunting thing to do, but we're here to help you to make sure that you're on track to filing the form that you need to do. So
Tim, so
here
can
are
I
the
just ask on a broader note? It was always interesting to me to discover that the United States is one of, as I understood it, at least a year or 2 ago, one of 3 countries that demands all residents file their tax return in the company of North Korea. And there was one other African country that demanded that as well. So is that still the case?
Um, but I haven't kept close track of all of the countries, but yeah, as far as I know, the US is one of the few countries where residents abroad generally still have to file US taxes and report their worldwide income to the IRS. So
And
yes, that is
nothing
definitely
in the
true.
pipeline with your upcoming new administration about relaxing that, I suspect.
I'm heard that there have been changes discussed, but I'm not sure if that requirement is going to be one of those changes.
Right. Yeah, so for the time being, listen closely to Tim.
Yes, but any changes that do come up, Greenback is here to keep you updated and to let you know how that might apply to you on an individual basis. So today we'll discuss these 5 topics. We'll look at the importance of being informed about the tax system of Portugal and how it impacts and how it interacts with your US tax return. We will look at some steps that you can take to efficiently organize your financial records. We'll talk about some key tax deadlines that you might want to put on your calendar so that you are aware of the important deadlines, because they can be different than the deadlines that people in the US are used to. Expats do have certain different deadlines. And so we'll talk about how to plan for those deadlines. We'll look at some strategies, some top-level strategies that you can use, that expats can use to maximize your exclusions and credits. And then we'll also look at your residency status, how that's defined by the IRS, and what tax implications your residency status has. And then I do want to leave plenty of time afterwards for your questions. Okay, first action is to stay informed. I'm told that the folks at Expats Portugal can provide you with connections to tax experts on the Portuguese side. US taxes are complicated enough that those of us at Greenback really focus on the US tax system. And so when there are questions about taxes in other countries, we do rely on the tax experts based overseas and who know those tax issues from other countries to provide advice on those tax topics. Okay. As mentioned before, as a US citizen, you are taxed on your worldwide income. So even if your income is not earned in the US, it is still subject to US taxes. The same, I'll just add that that is also true if you are a green card holder or a US permanent resident. Okay, so if you're a green card holder and you live overseas, the same rules that apply to US citizens also apply to those green card holders in terms of being subject to US tax on your worldwide income. Okay. The US has tax treaties with a number of countries. Portugal is one of those countries that has a tax treaty with the US, and the tax treaty, the exact wording of the tax treaty is posted online on irs.gov. And the primary purpose of the tax treaty is to prevent double taxation. Okay, so with the tax treaty, it really tries to rectify those situations where you might earn money and be taxed in both the US and Portugal. So it is something that you can take advantage of if you are trying to minimize your income taxes, both in the US and in Portugal. So the tax treaty does detail how to go about minimizing your overall income taxes. Okay. So it's crucial to be informed so that you can effectively leverage tax credits and tax exclusions. And so, of course, we all want to minimize our taxes. So being informed is the best way to do so. And then, by being informed of your filing requirements, you do also prevent unexpected tax liabilities. Okay, and with tax laws changing frequently, it's important to be informed so that you can save time and money over the long run. Okay, action. Did we skip a slide? Yes, action. Thank you. So action 2 is to get organized early. Okay, so make sure that, as usual, when you're filing your taxes, make sure you have all your documents on hand. That includes US tax documents that you might be issued, such as Forms W-2, such as Forms 1099. That also includes the equivalent overseas. So whatever the Portuguese version of a W-2 or a 1099 is, make sure that you do compile them and furnish those documents to your U.S. tax preparer, because those are still required to be reported on your U.S. tax return. Bank statements of both U.S. and foreign accounts. Okay, as someone living overseas, it is far more likely that you do have to report information about your bank account, about the maximum balances to the federal government in the U.S. So it's important to compile those bank statements so that any required information is being reported properly to the federal government. Okay, and then your investment records, if you do have investments, make sure that those details are on hand, because there can be additional reporting requirements regarding investments that you hold overseas that might not apply if you were only holding investments within the US. Okay. So in terms of staying organized, digital apps such as Expensify or QuickBooks are helpful. And there are certain apps that are more useful if you are accustomed to accessing them on a computer. There are certain apps that are more useful, and there are other apps that are more useful if you happen to prefer accessing that information on your smartphone. Okay, so there are certain apps out there that are more customized for your smartphone. So that's one thing I would look out for in when you are trying to decide on a specific app to track things.
That's really helpful, that.
Yeah. And it's important to keep digital copies in cloud storage that is encrypted. Here at Greenback, we take data security very seriously. One thing that I often mention is that email attachments can often not be encrypted. So which is why Greenback has its own secure portal for sending documents. Okay, so as tax preparers, we are trained to tell clients that if you are sending us documents, make sure you send it through the secure portal instead of just sending it as an email attachment. And so when you're keeping records on your own, you want to also make sure that whatever storage software you're using is also encrypted if you are keeping it on the cloud online. Regular updates are useful, just setting those calendar reminders to make sure that you are updating those records. Okay, so key deadlines to remember. If you're American or if you've lived in the US, you should already know that April 15th is the standard tax filing deadline. Okay, now when you are living overseas, there is an automatic extension, no request needed. And the extension moves your tax filing deadline from April 15th to June 15th. Now, when a deadline falls on a weekend or an American holiday, the deadline moves to the next business day. So next year, that June 15th deadline is actually going to be June 17th. And then let's see here. If you want an extension, you can file an extension. If you're abroad, the extension needs to be filed by June 15th, generally. Okay, so you do get that extra 2 months to file that extension if you are overseas. And once the extension is accepted by the IRS, the deadline moves to October 15th. Okay, so that's the deadline if you have a valid extension on hand. Okay, so on the last slide, I was talking about filing your tax return with the IRS. Now, when you're abroad, there's a good chance that you also have to file an FBAR. Okay, an FBAR is generally required if you have foreign financial accounts and the accounts total combined to be over 10,000 US dollars, at any time during the calendar year. Okay, so for example, if you have one Portuguese account and that maxed out at 7,000 US dollars, and another Portuguese bank account that maxed out at 5,000 US dollars, those two accounts individually did not on their own individually did not go over 10,000 US dollars, but combined they do total over 10,000 US dollars. So in that example, you do still have to file the FBAR. Okay, so with the FBAR, officially the deadline is April 15th every year. That being said, there is an automatic extension, no request needed, to October 15th if you do miss the April deadline. So in practice, the annual filing deadline for the FBAR is October 15th because the extension request is not necessary. Okay, consequences of missing deadlines. Late filing penalties can be up to 5% of unpaid taxes, and those penalties are generally capped at 25% of your unpaid taxes. Okay, and so in addition to penalties, the IRS does add interest that accrues on any unpaid taxes from the due date until the actual payment date. Okay, and there are some circumstances where if you do miss a deadline, it might disqualify you from certain exclusions, like the foreign earned income exclusion, which I think we'll discuss a little more in detail later, or credits, such as the foreign tax credit, such as the child tax credit, if you have children that you are claiming on your return, that can be a credit that you need to claim by a certain deadline. So action 4, maximize your exclusions. So I mentioned the foreign earned income exclusion, which we commonly abbreviate to the FEIE if you're working within the expat tax world. FEIE is an exclusion that you can take on any foreign income that you earn. Okay, that limit does go up by inflation automatically every year. So since it goes up by inflation, that maximum exclusion is different every year. For tax year 2024, as you see on the screen, it's $126,500. Okay, so that's the maximum amount of income that you can exclude from US taxes. You still have to report that income amount on your US return. Okay, so it's not an exclusion from reporting because that number does still show up on your US tax return, whatever you owed. But if you elect this exclusion, up to $126,500 can be excluded from US taxes. Okay, and this is on earned income. Okay, which means that money that wages, in other words, okay, money that you make while being employed or at work. Okay, so that's an important emphasis. Okay, so it does not apply to investment income, rental income. Okay, so only earned income qualifies for this particular exclusion. Now, how do you qualify for the FEIE? There are one of two tests that you must pass. Okay, you don't need to pass both of them, just one of them. Okay, one of them is the physical presence test. If you are outside of the US for at least 330 full days within a 12-month period, okay, that 12-month period qualifies for the FEIE. All right, that's a pretty straightforward test, okay, because all you need to do is count the number of full days that you are outside of the US within a certain 12-month period. And if it adds up to 330 days or more, then you qualify for the physical presence test. All right. And this is where you want to keep good records. I tell you, I myself filing my own tax return, use the physical presence test. So I have a spreadsheet counting the number of days that I am in the US, right, tracking those days down. And when I make my travel plans, I make sure that I can still visit the US and still meet this physical presence test. So make sure you do keep good records of when you are in the US if you are taking advantage of the physical presence test. The other test is the bona fide residence test. Okay, with the bona fide residence test, if you are considered a bona fide resident of a foreign country, which means if you reside in that country for an uninterrupted tax year, which in the US tax system, that's the calendar year. Okay, so using Portugal as an example, if you were considered a bona fide resident of Portugal for the entire year of 2024, then you can elect this test. I do want to warn you that the bona fide residence tests can get subjective. Okay, with the physical presence test, all you got to do is count to see if you do have 334 days abroad. Okay, and so that's a much more straightforward answer. Now, for some people, it's pretty clear that they're a bona fide residents, but if there are any questions or if there are any doubts about whether you qualify for the bona fide residence tests and you can qualify based on the physical presence test, well, then that's the physical presence test is the one that I generally use because of the way that the bona fide residence tests can be subjective. And if you aren't sure if you can qualify for the bona fide residence test, it's good to get advice and to read the fine print, so to speak, on the IRS website regarding who qualifies for that test. In addition to the FBAR, there is also the housing exclusion and the housing deduction. So that allows you to exclude certain housing expenses that you incur while living abroad. So that is something that's in addition to the FBAR, should you want to deduct those housing or exclude those housing expenses. All right, action 5 is to double check your residency status. Okay, so that's important because it determines your eligibility for the FEIE that we just discussed, as well as other exclusions. And in tax treaty benefits, in the US-Portugal tax treaty, it does refer to which country you are a resident of. Okay, so as we just discussed with the FEIE, those two key tests are the physical presence tests and the bona fide residence tests. Okay, so it impacts tax obligations because it influences the application of tax credits as well as tax deductions. Last bullet point is important for some of you because it affects certain requirements regarding state tax issues. There are certain states out there, off the top of my head, let me name California, let me name New York, and those two are probably the big ones. Okay, they make it very hard to break tax residency, even when you move abroad. Okay, there have been some situations where people live abroad for decades after having left California and New York. And decades later, they move back to those states, and the states will ask for income taxes on all of the tax returns that you didn't file over those decades while you are overseas. Okay, so if that is something that concerns you, those of us here at Greenback can provide you with more information on how state tax residency can impact those state taxes that you might be still required to pay while you're overseas. Okay, so to recap, stay informed, stay in touch through Expats Portugal, through Greenback. Sign up to be on our email list. We have a blog that's pretty active online as well, so that you can stay up to date regarding tax topics that might apply to you. So, as we said, get organized and make sure that you do keep good records so that accurate tax documents can be prepared based on those records. Make sure you are aware of those key deadlines. If need be, make sure you do file those extension requests. You really have nothing to lose by filing an extension, by the way. So some people ask me, should I file an extension? And I pretty much say yes whenever I get asked that question, however it's asked, because there's nothing to lose by just submitting that extension request every year. Okay, so maximize your exclusions. So on Greenback's site, you can get a link to our FEIE calculator to help you keep track of those days abroad and to also calculate what exclusions you might receive under the FEIE. And then double check your residency status and how that impacts your US tax obligations. And I want to also mention that if you are keeping track of residency status for Portuguese tax purposes, oftentimes different countries define a resident differently. So just because you're a Portuguese resident doesn't mean that you're not a US resident, and vice versa as well. So it's very important to know how the different tax rules in different countries apply to you on an individual basis. And so, yes, if you start those steps today, you'll have a smoother tax season tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
So for expats Portugal members, there is an exclusive offer that's available. So for consultations, which are usually by video, but can also be by phone, typically a consultation with a Greenback tax preparer like me is going to be charged $250 per 30-minute consultation. So with this offer, you get a great discount, and the consultation is only $75. And the offer does end in a couple weeks on December 20th. So please be sure to take advantage of it quickly if you are interested. And with consultations, you get personalized advice from CPAs and enrolled agents like me. And the off season, so to speak, now we're in the off season because we're not filing that many tax returns, no deadlines coming up, but it's a good time to do a consultation so that before tax season starts, you're well prepared for what you need to do in anticipation of tax season.
That's great. I think everybody leant forward in their seat there to hear the special offer for Expats Portugal members. That's very generous. Thank you very much for that. Is that your finishing slide there, or then some contact details for you there? I think that can. Oh, here we go.
Okay, so yes, speaking of the offer, so there's an exclusive link that you can access to get this offer. I believe I was just on the Expats Portugal website before this presentation to learn a little bit more about you guys. And I believe I saw that link on the website as well. So that's another way to access that link. And so once you access that link, then there will be a consultation request form that you can fill out, and then you can schedule a consultation based on a convenient date and time. And by scheduling, you can also find a preparer that matches your time zone preferences. We do have tax preparers all around the world who work for Greenback. Okay.
Very good. We've got the link in the chat as well. That's really helpful. Thank you very much, Sanisha, as well. Okay.
So yeah.
Tim, thank you very much indeed. If I can convey Diana's thanks to you as well. Very informative presentation. And yeah, we can see how hard you've worked there to simplify a very complicated and unpleasant process. Let's face it, generally speaking. But you're making it as pleasant as possible and as easy as possible for people, and taking as much of the stress out of it as you can. Great question from Diana. What would you recommend prospective clients do or have on hand in order to prepare for their initial consultation with greenback taxes? That's a great question, I think.
Yes. I mean, I would say it really depends on the consultation topic. One thing that really helps is to when you're booking that consultation, and there will be an open-ended box where you can write your own comments, is to be as detailed as possible regarding what you're looking for. If your topic is very specialized, then the information on that form can be helpful in terms of matching you with the correct tax preparer, with the tax preparer that can best be trained to triage your issue. With even within the expat tax world, there are so many topics out there that our different preparers have expertise on different topics. Okay, so by being detailed, you can make sure that we get your case to the right person.
Very good. Tax triage, that's a new one on me. That makes it sound very dramatic. But I suppose they do want blood, don't they? So it's not a million miles. It's not a million miles away from the truth there. Thanks, Tim. Let's go to some more questions. Actually, what I'll do now, I've put the link into the YouTube live stream, and what we'll do is I'll stop streaming over there. Become a member of Expats Portugal. You know what to do over there on YouTube. If you want to join us on a Thursday night and ask questions of our expert speakers on a Thursday evening, come over and join up. I'll put the link in there to the greenback offer, but also that will help you find your way to the Expats Portugal website, where you can sign up this evening as well. I think our Black Friday deal is over now, but you may have missed out on that. But you've got that greenback offer to look forward to, and discounts on many other services that you'll need for moving to Portugal. So let me just say goodbye to you for the time being on YouTube. Join us at 9 for the Dream Team session as well. So we're back on YouTube at that time. And everybody here this evening at the Expats Portugal Premium members, you're very welcome, of course, to join us for the Dream Team session at 9. So I'm just stopping the stream over there, and I'll conclude the recording here. Oh, no, actually, let me ask some of these more general questions before we go into more personal, private questions as well. So I'll keep the recording here for anybody who needs it after the session tonight. Thanks, Tim. Thanks, Menanto, as well. And to Jean-Claude. Sorry, I called you John earlier on. Jean-Claude is working behind the scenes, so forgive me for that. Let's have a look. And you have been very busy behind the scenes answering questions for people, so thank you for that. It was Eritrea. Somebody thought Ethiopia. Eritrea, North Korea, and the United States. Good company, says Vadim, regardless. Larry, here in Scottsdale, Arizona, making travel arrangements to return to San Martinho de Porto here in Portugal, ASAP. And looking forward to coming back and paying taxes in Portugal there. Carl C says, do you need to inform the US IRS that your domicile is now in Portugal before you file your 24 taxes, or can you do it when you actually file? Can you address that one there, Tim?
Sure. So what I would recommend is that for the purpose of having your current address on file with the IRS, there is a form that the IRS has for changing your address. So you can fill out that form and send it to the IRS, and that will get your address changed, so that if the IRS does need to contact you about a previous return, for example, IRS can mail you that information to the correct address. So that address change is more for administrative purposes. I would say for tax purposes, the IRS will be informed more or less when you actually file the tax return.
Right. Okay. Thank you. For people, this is Vadim. For people who continue to maintain a home in the US, do they have to inform the IRS of a domicile in Portugal, or can they simply file as regular US residents? Another great question.
Okay, so this is someone living in Portugal but still owning a home in the US, is that
Yes. Yeah.
okay?
By the sound of it. Vadim, you might want to clarify on that. But yeah, let's go with that for the time being.
All right. So owning a home abroad in itself doesn't cause any additional reporting requirements. Now, owning a home can make it more likely that you have some additional forms. For example, if you're renting out the home, then there would be Schedule E for rental property. If your home is owned by a trust, then there might be some foreign account reporting requirements that are involved. Okay, so yeah, it would really depend on your individual situation.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. On that similar sort of theme there, if I continue to own a home in the US but rent it out, does that qualify as maintaining a home, maintaining a home?
Okay, so um, it sounds like that question is referencing the FEIE, the foreign earned income exclusion. Okay, so remember there are two tests out there.
Mm.
One is based on the 330 days. Okay, so with 330 days, it doesn't matter how many homes you own in the US or abroad. All that matters, again, it's a simple test, is how many days you are abroad. Now, with the bona fide residence tests, owning a home in the US can get tricky. That can be one of the factors the IRS looks at. So I would say that it's not impossible to still own a home in the US and meet the bona fide residence tests, but I would say it's a little bit less likely that you might qualify for that particular test.
There you go. That was for Lance and Sarah. So I hope that helps. Do ask more questions if you need further detail on that. Thank you, Jean-Claude, for answering that behind the scenes as well. Just to be sure, Greenback knows how to best handle clients that have the NHR status. Yes, and that reminds me as well. You very kindly, Tim, earlier on said Expats Portugal, we can connect people for this side of the water. And of course, yeah, Pedro Franco, who you'll see on the Dream Team session possibly tonight, is the man to go to at EIA. So yes, we definitely do have people who can help both sides of the water. NHR, you're happy working with that by the sound of it?
Yes, so I actually did have a Portuguese client, and we worked with how his HR status might apply to his US return. Those of us at Greenback are familiar with that special status, and we know what to do with it in terms of helping you comply with the US tax requirements. Yes.
That's great. I think, Jerry, you wanted to jump in there?
Yes, please, Carl, and good evening, everybody. Yes, I just wanted to add to that point that I know from talking with Pedro Franco that he would be quite happy to arrange a three-way consultation between Greenback, Pedro, and the individuals, so to be able to cover the whole thing in one conversation, I think. And I presume, Tim, you'd be happy, likewise, you'd be happy to respond to that. Yeah.
Yes, that is an option as well to deal with the issue through a consultation, even if it's three-way. Yes.
It's like playing three-dimensional chess. It'd be great to have both of your tax advisors there in one place.
Three-dimensional chess is probably easier than the tax returns.
True, very true. So why not practice by playing three-dimensional chess as a way of a warm-up for that three-way call with Tim and Pedro there? Thanks, Jerry. Thanks, Tim, on that as well. Incidentally, Debbie says, anyone here who is not a member of Expats Portugal should join. The value is exponentially more than the fee. So thanks for that, Debbie, by the way. Scene says, are all your tax agents Americans, or are there also non-Americans that specialize in US taxes? Just wondering, because someone mentioned that they were assigned to someone in South America. This is not with Greenback, though. Is Greenback similar? Are there any issues with that? Jean-Claude answered that as well. But yeah, how does it work with your personnel, Tim?
My understanding is that all of our tax preparers are either CPAs or enrolled agents, so registered with the US, because those are US licenses. I'm not 100% sure that all of us are US citizens, because that's not a requirement to obtain those licenses.
Okay.
Okay,
Right.
so the license is what Greenbelt looks for in terms of.
Oh, look, we get to meet Jean-Claude. Good evening to you, Jean-Claude.
Good evening. I thought I'd just jump in quickly
Yes.
and try and explain that as well. So as many of our clients are expats themselves, so too are many of our accountants as well. So as I mentioned in the chat earlier, to a level, our accountants are strategically placed around the world to not only accommodate for time zones, but in some cases also a local understanding, or to a certain degree, of course, a local understanding of tax codes for that expats as well. But we have very high criteria when onboarding accountants, as Tim knows himself. So all of our accountants are expat experts.
Yes. I was going to say that the emphasis is on expat here, isn't it? If you're a US
Yes, very
citizen,
much
obviously
so.
you need to file. That's what we're talking about tonight. But the skill base here is about being an expat as much as it is being a tax expert as well. So thanks for that clarification, Jean-Claude. And thanks for your work behind the scenes tonight as well. Isaac, thank you. This was very helpful, this presentation for Portuguese tax residents who missed the NHR. Is global US-based income taxed at the current Portuguese tax rates? And are there any ways around this? I think that's probably one to bring to the dream team tonight and ask Pedro Franco about that. Or just go ahead and book a consultation with Pedro on that. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Tim or Jean-Claude, but that's a Portuguese side, isn't it, of things there. So perhaps best with Pedro.
Yes, I agree that that's best handled on the Portuguese side.
Yep. Okay. Thank you. Great bullet points there from Menanto as well. Forgive me. I'm not sure if I got the emphasis right on the syllables of your name there, Menanto or Menanto. Could you help me with that?
Enough. It's
Okay,
close enough.
Okay, that's very
We'll
kind
go
of
with
you.
it.
All right, thanks very much. And your FAQs are there. That's really wonderful. Great list, says Diana. Thank you for that. Sanisha, thanks for putting the link in with the offer there as well. Vadim is saying, just example, e.g. having residency permit and home in Portugal and spending time both here and there. Oh, that was to clarify earlier on, but I think you've been helped with that. Thanks again, Jean-Claude, for those bullet points in there. This is fantastic. Your team are brilliant, Tim, working behind the scenes there. Was the FBAR explained? Yes, it was, La Ronda, just as you stepped out. I think so. Watch the replay and you'll be able to find out more about the FBAR there, which is such a. The FBAR probably does create F-bombs from time to time, doesn't it? That just went through my mind as you were talking about it. So yeah, we have talked about the FBAR tonight. My income 100% from USA, says Debbie. I'm retired and my income is not really high. Would my Portugal taxes be pretty uncomplicated? Going back to Jerry's comment earlier on, I think most taxation issues are fairly complex, Debbie. No Portugal income and don't own property here. All I have is my bank account in Portugal. This will be our situation as well, says Lance and Sarah. I'm very interested in this question. So I think the point there is if things are uncomplicated and people don't have a massive amount of income, does that make it easier? In a sense, I think is the essence of that question, Tim. What would you say?
It can. There's, of course, there's a wide range of things that I see among the clients that I have at Greenback. Some cases turn out to be relatively simple. Some cases are on the more difficult side. Yeah, there are a wide range of situations. There are also certain situations that are simple one year and can very quickly get complicated the next year as well.
Yeah. So it bodes well, I suppose, that people's situations are uncomplicated, but we shouldn't take it for granted that they will be. Because we don't get the last word on these matters, do we? Okay, that's great. Thanks for that question. Debbie says, yeah, my USA tax return is very uncomplicated. I think that's all of the questions there. So I'll stop the recording over here for the Expats Portugal members. And thanks again, Tim. Thank you, Menanto and Jean-Claude as well.